Right, so here we are. Several of my friends and I, we've got interested in the new Frostgrave fantasy skirmish game released by Osprey Games. This gives us a chance to play some cool, interesting games, develop some characters and campaigns, and use some of our fantasy models that in some cases have been sitting in a box or on a shelf for large numbers of years. So I decided to dig out some of my Beastmen models and use them for this, because you can use the models for whatever you want as long as they've got the key minimal WYSIWYG attributes. So Gorthor the Magnificent, my Beastman shaman, and his warband are off in search of magical artifacts and treasure in the city of Frostgrave in service to their dark gods. And here we go. Oh, by the way, there were a couple of elves and humans and other people who we encountered, but they were barely rated mentioned. So we had 3 people, so we were trying out Frostgrave as a multiplayer game, and that worked fine. So the Beastmen, we've got my wizard, he's a witch, an apprentice, 3 infantrymen or infantry beasts, 2 archers, 2 thugs, and a warhound. I also summoned a wolf as part of my summon animal companion. Some dark elves, they had a wizard who is a necromancer, an apprentice, a knight, 2 infantrymen and 2 archers. The humans had another necromancer, an apprentice, a knight, an infantryman, 2 archers, a thief, and 3 warhounds. So off we go. Here's Gorthor and his band of merry beasts. In the middle there we also managed to summon a zombie and a wolf to add to our warband. Now each player's got to put down 3 treasures somewhat near to their position, and really it's about trying to grab your share of the treasure plus any other shares that somebody else doesn't have lying down and make off with it. These is the humans. You can see all their models. They are to the right of the Beastmen, so in the humans' terms the Beastmen are off to their left. And here's the Dark Elves. Question of a whole bunch of brand new models for various combination of elf and dark elf bits. Alright, slightly blurry picture. So dark elves win the first wizard phase and run forward towards their reveal secret treasure. Here's Gorthor. He group activates, runs forwards and brings with him his 3 infantrymen, and here he casts Enchant Weapon on the Beastman just to his left. No he doesn't. He casts Poison Dart at the elf wizard, manages to cast the spell successfully, but the elf dodges and the attack missed. The human wizard tries to cast a spell and fails and hurts himself, and then walks forwards a bit. Here's the remainder of Gorthor's infantry beasts running forwards. In the apprentice phase, the apprentice runs forwards with some more friends. The human apprentice activates and tries to spell and then walks forward, and I think fails as well, doesn't do anything. Interestingly, at this point, the human wizard and apprentice have activated, but not group activated, so haven't used any of their soldiers, whereas most of the other players. And in the soldier phase, my war dog runs forward to hide behind that piece of ruin. My thug runs forward to hide behind a piece of ruin there. The infantry beast has run over a bit next to him. And we can see the dark elves coming forwards. I think at this point my archer tries to shoot that infantryman under the tree, but misses. In this game, it certainly took the archers a while to work out which ones of their arrows were actually effective. Several people seem to have bought them from cheap Chinese importers rather than genuine named brand arrows. Here you can see the dark elves sort of infiltrating forwards, taking cover behind some rocks. There's my wolf slinking forwards, ready to go eat some dark elf. Here's the humans. They're all basically running forwards, and away they go. Next turn, here's some more Dark Elf soldiers phase activity, coming forwards, and here's where my apprentice and other troops end up. In Alan's phase, just before he got to his reveal secret and picked it up, and two skeletons promptly showed up at the back of the board behind the humans. Yay, just what you wanted, although, he's a necromancer, so possibly if he knows the right spell he could control them. Turns out he chose not to take that one, possibly more for him. Here's Alan's knight galloping forwards onto another treasure, and in Al's apprentice phase, he swaps a whole bunch of his warriors and stuff around. They're all moving up, and then in my soldier phase, I attack his infantryman who was standing under the tree. Alan's archer had fallen back from the rock wall back to there, and his other archer had retired to those pieces of ruins. His infantryman was covering the flanks and promptly got eaten by two war dogs, and my infantrymen are all pushing up hard behind that tower. Al's wizards having none of that, and throws a grenade spell in and fatally injures the wolf and hurts the war dog. Here's some of the human soldiers have galloped forwards, contacting a piece of treasure, and this treasure summons a construct which turns up behind me. Fantastic. Here's my apprentice sneaking forward with support from her followers. My thug runs over and grabs that treasure. The zombies staggering forwards in support, and you can starting to see that the human warband dogs are getting closer. It's going to be a problem next turn, and one of the treasures that I find turns out to attract a skeleton which shows up behind Alan. So far everybody's opened a treasure it's attracted a monster and it's shown up behind somebody else. And in the soldier phase, the war dogs run forwards and start tagging my apprentice. They weren't able to close on me as part of the first action, so they've just run up next to me and have snapped, engaging me in close combat, so I can't move away or cast any spells, which, given I'm a wizard, is not particularly useful. So in my soldier phase, my war dog gallops over to engage Alan's Dark Elf Archer. My Beastman runs up behind that piece of ruins, and a couple of my other infantry beasts run back the other way into the middle. My thug starts dragging the treasure back towards my table edge, and we're continuing to press on both the Dark Elves. Yep, and here we can see Gorthor down at the bottom there, just taking up position behind the ruins at the bottom there, and the beast. And in the creature phase, that skeleton will run forward and engage my infantryman, who probably turns around and cuts it into pieces with his axe. My dog, I don't think, had enough move to get and fight the archer at that point, so in Alan's soldier phase we'll fight. Here's the construct running forwards, and I'm trying to relieve some of the pressure on my apprentice, so I send back my zombie so it's the nearest thing for the construct to go after. My archer shoots at one of the humans over there, and I think in this shot crit 20s and kills one of the human archers, and then runs over and engages one of the dogs so that the apprentice won't have so many. My thug there is starting to drag the treasure off to the right. And in Alan's soldier phase, yep, his archer's able to kill off my dog, and his apprentice has pulled back to those ruins, and his sorcerer has snuck off round the ruins, further to the right of that wall. He's got a cunning plan going on about how to get that piece of treasure up on top of the parapet there. Gorthor decides that things are going well enough against the Dark Elves. They're retreating back over there, and turns around to start dealing with the humans. He moves forwards and casts Leap onto the apprentice, and is able to use that to get her out of combat with the wardogs, and leap her up to the top of the tower up there, where she's fairly out of line of sight. My archer standing here shoots and guns down Alan's apprentice, so there should be a splat marker up at the corner of that ruin up there, much to Al's disgust. I think at this point my archers had worked out which was the sharp end and which was the blunt end on their arrows. Here's my archer engaging, and a third war dog has arrived to make this a bit of a mess. I think in this photo I'm missing beast warrior from the middle there. I think the necromancer has flowed round the corner and crit 20 bone darted my beastman and just blown him straight off the table. Here's me having a go with my archer shooting Alan's archer there. I think I hit him and wound him, but don't kill him. And Alan's knight, so Alan's got his most expensive beast fighting guy lugging a piece of treasure around. His archer falls back from the ruins and the other archer falls back as well, and at this point Alan's wizard's behind the top of that tower. In this combat my infantry beast goes in and has a go at one going on of the dogs. My zombie has gotten back into that combat, and my archer won a combat and pushed off against pushed himself away from the dog to break the engagement and start covering the thug who's dragging the treasure back to the table edge as fast as he can. Yep, and here we go, you can see exactly that. So here's my infantry beast, fought a combat, won, pushed my archer pushed the dog away, broke engagement, rolled back, and is covering the thug. Here's the forces of the humans. They've got their necromancer advancing up, gliding forward, looking all sinister, their apprentice and one of their supporting archers. Here's a giant finger of doom, just working out exactly who's going to fight, who's in contact with who, and who's going to fight what. At this point the construct, represented by the mummy figure, will be going after the war dog. So at this point I'm trying, even though the constructs are neutral, not controlled by anybody, it attacks the nearest model, so by careful placement I've managed to make sure that the war dogs from the opposing warband are the nearest models for it to go after, rather than anything more valuable in my and yep, after the fighting, it looks like my infantry beast has fallen over. One of the archers, or my archers, is engaged by a war dog. The zombie is engaged with a war dog or a spider, and the wolf is at the bottom there. And here we can see the humans sort of massing to sweep around the tower. They've got rid of two of my infantry beasts, which is kind of what was standing in the way of their implacable advance through into the middle of the table. Yep, here we can see the construct closes in and smacks one of the war dogs to pieces, sends it flying off. Here, in a cunning move, Al's wizard casts fog and casts that so it can't be seen, and then the intent is to climb up the castle walls behind the cover of the fog, effectively with like a temporary line of sight blocking barrier. And in another fit of magical brilliance, the human necromancer crit 20s my thug carrying the treasure with a bone dart and drags him off the table as well. Yep, zap, there you can see the human wizard doing quite well with those bone darts. He's worked out which end of the bow and arrow to throw. So Gorthor responds. He casts Wall. Now, Wall comes from one of the neutral schools for a witch, and I missed this casting by about 6, but I really needed some kind of protection, so I empowered it with a big chunk of life force, and Gorthor's feeling fairly poorly at this point, and yeah, definitely needs going to need a bit of rest after this battle. But now, where there's that blue line, there's now a big 3-inch high stone wall, which cuts off the humans from being able to get in to that fight, and isolates them down to like 2 war dogs. Gorthor then moves over into place behind that pillar. Sorry, this shot's a bit blurry. I must have my hand shaking in excitement. The thug continues retreating, helped in this case by the apprentice who moved to the other side of the tower, saw the thug cast leap on the thug and sped him off the table. Gorthor then had moved back behind the tower and was trying to find a good place to rest. The human archer steps around the column and shoots him and damages him, and even though he was not normally would have been enough to kill him because he used up a lot of his wounds to power the wall up before Gorthor actually goes down to that shot. The human treasure hunter has moved up to engage the zombie, contesting that treasure in the middle. Down the bottom there, the construct has engaged its second dog. Yep, there's Gorthor that's gone splat. The human necromancer's sidled back into the middle there. Yep, where's the zombie and the treasure? Yes, okay. So at this point, pretty much everybody was, I think we'd done our turn 6, so the zombie won the combat and pushed the human treasure hunter away, so got to keep his treasure. The construct finished off that last dog, and here's the survivors of Gorthor's warband after the battle. 1 infantryman and 1 thug died, probably the ones that got crit 20 bone darted. Everybody else was fine, and yes, in the pub after the battle, the red ones are the ones that went down, and the ones with strike throughs are the ones that died. So after the battle, Gorthor chose his lair as an inn. That gives me a warband size of 11, and with the treasure I got and the money and selling a couple of scrolls, I got a mega cauldron, which gives me +1 to brew potion, and yeah, my infantry beast and a thug die, and I replace them with a Templar, a treasure hunter, and another infantry beast. So I'm now at full warband size. Depending on what happens next game, I might get enough to get another enhancement, another kennel for my inn, which would mean I could have another model in my warband and another warthog. So now, next battle, I can have some more goes at trying to summon animal companions, and then see if I can get something better than a dog, in which case the dog can get replaced, and then away we go. Oh well. Thanks everybody for those that have made it to this far in the battle report, and yeah, it looks like there's quite a lot of good potential for Frostgrave. It's a bit harder, I think, to battle report than a standard I go, you go type game, especially when it's 3 people. So there's bound to be some exciting bits that I missed out of the battle when you're trying to both play and remember to photo everything and everybody else. So, yep, look forward to more adventures of Gorthor the Magnificent. Thanks. Bye.